Hello, everybody.
Hello.
I've been told I'm very quiet, so I'm going to try and be as loud as I can. Can you hear me? Yeah? Okay. All right. So, it's really, really good to be here tonight. And everybody looks amazing, and it looks like we're going to really have a great, great night. I'm actually excited and looking forward to it. So, I was asked to share a little bit about what love means to me. But before I do that, I know you're busy eating, but thank you for loving the imperfect me, for caring, for being loyal, protective, patient, always putting me first, for not restricting me. I could go on, but I just want to say thank you for being the meaning of love to me. I love you. So I'm always humbled when I'm asked to say something and share some of my journey, because I'm just such a work in progress. God is always working, and in marriage and relationships, we're always learning, we're always growing. And so I was like, where do I start? Because love is very personal, it's very subjective, it's very relative, it's very biased actually. So I thought, I'll start with Google, like we all do. And if you Google the meaning of love, you get about 3.7 billion hits in 60 seconds. That's how much information is out there about love and the meaning of love. But I started thinking, okay, there's so much out there, and we all, love means different things to different people. What could I possibly talk about? And I thought, when we first meet each other, it's the good things that attract us to each other. And I thought, so what is it that makes people stick together? What is it that makes us stay together? And so there's many reasons, but I just picked a few that I thought I might just encourage us with tonight. And one of the things that came up when I was thinking about all this and thinking about my journey, I realized that it's the imperfections and the flaws that actually determine whether we stay together or we don't. And those imperfections are usually magnified, or they become more apparent in times of conflict, times of stress, times of crisis, and times of challenges in our relationships. So tonight I want to talk a little bit about what love looks like when we're faced with, sorry, I'm getting distracted. What love looks like when we're faced with problems, with challenges, tensions, and crises in our relationships. And so I ended up in the book of Job, looking at Job and his wife when they were going through the crisis in their life, the crisis in their marriage. And the Bible says in Job 2, verse 9 to 10, then Job's wife said, do you still hold fast to your integrity? Just curse God and die. But he said to her, you speak like a fool. Shall we accept only good from God and not adversity? And so this is a brief conversation that Job and his wife are having during a time of crisis. They've lost everything. And a lot of the times, I think we judge Job's wife quite harshly. And so tonight we'll be a little bit kinder to her and we'll learn from her. Job was not the only one that lost everything. And sometimes I think we forget that. She actually lost everything as well. She lost all her children. She lost her home. She lost everything. And one day, she would have been freaking out. She would have been absolutely devastated. And so how do you love through those sorts of situations? How do you love through a challenge like that? And so I came up with a few points. Number one for me is love means being a trustworthy presence. Job's wife didn't leave him. She stayed. I'd like to believe that she actually trusted that he was telling the truth when he said what they were going through was not because he had sinned. And for me, trust means everything in a relationship. But it needs to be an underlying presence before we actually hit tragedy and crisis. You can't be working on trust and be dealing with the crisis at the same time. So for me, love is about building that trust between the two of us so that whatever storm comes along, we are not then having to work on that and deal with that. When my husband's honest, it builds that trust between the two of us. Number 2, love is willing to hurt each other's feelings. We don't often hear that, but actually for me, being honest is the most important part of our relationship. You know, it's more important to me than making me feel good all the time. The last person I should ever have to censor myself with is the person that I love. You know, sometimes he's honest and he can be brutally honest. I will sulk, I'll complain, I'll feel bad. But you know, that it makes me a better person in our relationship. So my encouragement to us is be honest in love. Don't tell him he was amazing when he wasn't. You know, but don't be cruel either. You know, someone said there should be 3 gatekeepers to our mouths. So when you say something, is it honest, is it kind, and is it necessary? And of course, timing is also key. When our priority is to make us feel good or to make each other feel good all the time, after a while you find resentment comes into our relationships because pretending and lying is exhausting. It really, really is. And after some time you just feel like I'm the one that's always doing this. And so if I feel smothered and controlled, I should be able to say that without blaming him. And he should be able to hear it without blaming me. And if my husband feels I'm unresponsive and cold towards him, he needs to be able to say it without blaming, and I need to be able to hear it. If what I'm wearing today doesn't particularly work, the one who loves me the most should be honest in love without me getting offended and feeling you're always wanting to control everything, you always want to control even what I wear. But, husbands, be careful, because if you never compliment me when I'm looking good, you don't get to criticize the day you don't like what I'm wearing. So it has to be give and take. You know, when Job's wife spoke from her soul, she was frustrated. She was angry with what had happened to their family. She was angry at God. I don't think her intention was to cause her husband to sin, but I think she just wanted his suffering to end. She just wanted their suffering to end. And so there's a few things I noticed about Job's wife. Number 1, she didn't deny the problem, but she actually brought it to the surface. She named what she thought was the core of their problem. Is God just? So they built their relationship and their lives on the belief that God was just. And then everything fell apart. And so that was the issue, that was the problem for them. And so she asked the question, is God just? She didn't blame Job for their problems, although everyone else did. And so, you start thinking about these things and you start thinking about a relationship, and it's easy to start throwing accusations at each other when we're in a time of crisis. If it's to do with a child, for example, you hear things like, you are the one that spoiled them. You're the one that didn't spend time with them. If you'd spent time with them, we wouldn't be in this situation. You're the one that didn't do this and that and the other. So, it's really, really important not to blame. And the other thing is, Job did not respond by blaming his wife, but he spoke honestly to her. He said, you are talking like a foolish woman now. And I don't think he was belittling her grief or her anguish, but he was being honest that think about what you're saying. Think about the words that are coming out of your mouth. And Job's wife, lastly, she simply spoke what was in her heart, what was in her gut, what was in her soul. And I wrote here, sometimes there are no answers, but love is a place where the deepest questions of life can be asked. Their relationship was such that she wasn't afraid to admit her doubts about God. She felt free to express her anguish and her anger of her soul to her soulmate. And I believe, to me, that's love. When you can be you can be honest, you can be open. Number 3, love fights clean. We like to use that term a lot, let's fight clean. Because in times of conflict, don't fight dirty. And as couples, we do that a lot. The focus should never be on you trying to win the fight, because you win, they lose, and then what? When selfishness creeps into an argument, no one wins. Someone said to me, think about a relationship counselor or an advisor that you've been to. They come with perspective, they come with altitude, they don't come with emotion. And a lot of the times, and then you say, but I'm already upset, how can I not come, with emotion? And then I thought, actually, we've all been taught at one point in our lives that love is not a feeling, love is not an emotion, it's a choice. So it's the same thing. You have to choose not to focus on the emotions. You need to choose to get a perspective and really think about what's going on here. Recently, we had a fight with an argument about money at home. So a significant amount of money had gone out of the account. And I'm not a morning person, so I woke up in the morning and I was, looking at them, this money is missing. So I said, Ray, $900 has left the account. And he said, yes. I said, $900? That's a lot of money. And you didn't tell me. He said, well, I'm sorry. I said, well, you should have told me. And then he said, look, I'll get the money from some other jobs I'm doing, I'll put it back in the account. Well, that got me even more annoyed. Because then I said, that's not the point. I don't want you to put the money back in the account. Then the poor guy was getting more annoyed at me because he couldn't understand what is the big deal. Because the money was actually used for something, useful. But isn't it interesting how you can be having the same argument and fight about two completely different things? And that's what was happening. He thought I was upset about the money. But I was upset because he hadn't told me the money was coming out at a particular date. And so, and those are sort of things that can happen when you don't have perspective in a situation. Love says, I'm sorry, and expects nothing in return. So say you're sorry, own your part of the problem, and expect nothing in return. But sometimes, maybe it's just me, but we say I'm sorry, and then we want to dictate how the other person processes and takes the apology. I don't know if you've ever been in a situation, I do this, when I'm still upset and hurt, and then I said I'm sorry. And then he's still upset. Now I'm upset, because why are you upset? If I said I'm sorry, get over it. And let's move on, But, love says I'm sorry and expect nothing in return. You can't dictate whether they forgive you, but because you love them, you apologize and you own it. Amen. Amen. And the other point that I have is let some conflicts go unresolved. Remember, we're talking about what love is. Not every challenge is a problem to be solved, and sometimes love accepts that we have to let some conflicts go unresolved. There's a guy called John Gotham, and he's written a few books on marriage and couples and relationships. And the first thing he says in almost all of his books is the idea that couples must communicate and resolve all their problems is a myth. It's not realistic. Sometimes you're faced with a situation where there's no clear answer, clear solution, and you can't agree. And so I've actually been realizing that some problems are not to be solved, they're actually tensions to be managed in our relationships. And so I thought, what sort of tensions do we sometimes face? And there's one of them when we were younger is whenever his mother is around, he's not the same person. What do you do about that? That's a tension to manage, right? And another one is his family is more well off than mine, but he insists we send money to them just because we send money to my family. That's another tension that's common amongst us, especially Africans. Or his mother doesn't like me. So you can argue until, you turn blue in the face, but that's another tension that you have to manage in a relationship, not a problem that you necessarily have to solve. And the last point I have is recognize and accept that sometimes you are the problem. Mm-hmm. And that's a hard one. It is really hard, especially if you identify the problem first. The default is he's the one with the issue, not me. And sometimes love is about recognizing that you're actually the problem. You might be the one that's controlling, you might be the one that's too demanding, you might be the one that's actually too critical in this situation, or even too entitled. I'm a princess. And sometimes the way to solve a problem is to actually stop being the problem. And then how? Because that's the thing, it's easy for us to say stop being a problem, but how? And so ask to get honest feedback from your spouse. And what you hear might be hurtful and painful to hear, because pride will make you feel like, they're too critical, they don't understand how great and how awesome I am. After all, I do this and I do that, and they don't appreciate it, and they do this and they do that, and I put up with it, so why are they criticizing me? But then, so what do we do? be honest and accept that you are the problem. They say you can't change what you don't confront. And it's easy for all of us to point out problems and say, I have a problem with this and I don't like this, but it's another thing for us to actually acknowledge that we are the problem. And these emotions and feelings can be uncomfortable, but if we opt for comfort always, how do we grow in our relationships? So those are the few things that I just wanted to encourage us with tonight, that, when we face challenges, conflict, crisis in our relationships, number one, a trustworthy presence. Be there. Don't bail out. Don't run off. Don't pull yourself back. Don't withdraw. That's one of my weaknesses. I'll withdraw. But just be there and face it together. Be honest in love. Honesty will hurt feelings, but it'll build us up in the long run. Don't fight dirty. Live and let live. Some battles, just leave it for tomorrow. Recognize and accept that sometimes you are the problem. And finally, you can grow your relationship if you're committed to learning, to growing, and to always looking to improve. Thank you.
Amen.